Good morning, students. Yesterday we saw how the British and the European travelers were quite amused and very surprised and fascinated, and if I may also use the word here, scandalized by what they saw in India when, in the manner in which our great deities and the gods were expressed, right? So, with 8 hands and with all the different kinds of weaponry, and because you have to this is you really need to understand one important thing, that their major god, that Jesus Christ, is expressed in a certain, in a very different kind of fashion. Their Christ, the Redeemer, happens to be the one undergoing great pains and tribulations, but our gods were considered to be the masters of the universe. Okay, so naturally this was quite different, for a different experience for the white travelers. But there is one very curious thing about our system of how we express our gods, students. If you might have, as I also said yesterday, you might have visited some very, very famous temples in India, right from Guwahati, Kamakya temple, to, from Khatu Maharaj in Rajasthan, or probably Madurai in South India, to probably Vaishno Devi in Kashmir, and many, many in between, of course, right? So you would see that in India, the temples could be very, very grand, amazing work on the pillars and the boundaries and periphery, amazing architecture all around, great amount of opulence, it's all studded with gold and precious metals, and all that is there. And even you, but the moment you enter the Garbhagriha, or the Sanctum Sanctorum, right, where the gods are kept, and there you suddenly see that the whole thing is appears to be, apart from a few temples, that is, I'm not talking about Tirupati in particular, but if you go to even the other major temples of India, which happen to be very rich in all kind of manners, whereby if you go to Lord Jagannath temple, for example, Jagannath Lord Temple, it's a massive campus, the biggest temple of Lord Jagannath, which gets visitors from around, Hindus from around the world. Thousands of visitors visit Jagannath temple every day, and the fatak, or the door, the main door, that opens around 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning itself, right? And you would still find that amazing piece. It's a whole township inside, and but you would still find that the moment you look at the statue of Lord Jagannath, you see it is made of wood. And it's not just that, it does not even have limbs. Lord Krishna there, or the Jagannath, he doesn't even have his arms there, right? So you can, that is the contrast here. In many, many major temples around the country, you would see fabulous temples, amazing architecture, amazing artwork all around. And the moment you enter the Garbhagriha, where actually the gods have been kept, and where the whole activity of prayer and all that happens, and the puja happens, you would see suddenly all that opulence and grandeur is gone, and suddenly all you probably find is a small trident, or the trishul, or something like a shivlinga, which is just kind of with some water and something, and it appears to be suddenly dark and dingy, because it has only one door. It would be surrounded from all the sides, it would be closed from all the sides, and suddenly it appears to be all that grandeur which you saw while entering the Garbhagriha, all that suddenly evaporates. There is so much of contrast here, unlike in the other. If you talk about the churches, it would be the same grand outside and the same grand inside, and if it is frugal outside, then it is frugal inside as well. Unlike in Indian, many of our Indian major temples of India, where you suddenly find a whole kind of different kind of thing outside, but the moment you enter, you see all that opulence is gone, and suddenly everything appears to be very austere. Now, if text and image do not match, Now, consider another problem. We've seen that art historians often draw upon textual traditions to understand the meaning of sculptures. Now, while this is certainly a far more efficacious strategy, that is far better and an efficient strategy than comparing Indian images with Greek statues, it is not always easy to use. Now, why the British were kind of more at ease with the Greek statues was because they were expressed. Buddha was expressed in a very European kind of sculptural tradition. Students, you have to understand something very interesting. As I've often said, that today's Pakistan, though it's very difficult to believe that today's Pakistan and Afghanistan, today's Afghanistan, the comedy of errors actually, used to be the center of Buddhism at that point in time, where the greatest of the disciples of and the masters of Buddhism used to live in Afghanistan and of course Pakistan as well. Now, of course, all that is gone after Islam took over everything, but then yes, that is what it was. And the greatest statues of which the British found very fascinating were found because they were artistically very perfect and accurate, because they were expressed under the patronage of Indo-Greek rulers and Indo-Greek military generals who had come along with Alexander the Great. So those statues appear to be in far better symmetry and in terms of perfection and in terms of how they drape the clothes around them and all of that. It is in a far better fashion, compared to the what is found in rest of the country. So if text and image do not match, and that is what it is, one of the most intriguing examples of this is the famous sculpture along the huge rock surface in Mahabalipuram, Tamil Nadu, which is there. They are talking about essentially this image, this image which is here. So clearly, it is a vivid depiction of a story, but what story it is? Art historians have searched through the Purans to identify it and are sharply divided in their opinions. Some feel that this depicts the descent of river Ganga from heaven. That is, we all know the story behind it, whereby Bhagirathi, King Bhagirathi, from one of the great ancestors of Sri Ram, he particularly prayed for river Ganga to come from heavens on planet Earth, and because of the ferocity because Ganga happens to be an extremely powerful river with very strong water current, and it was we all know the story that it was felt that if she directly fell into the planet Earth, the whole planet Earth would be thrown off its orbit, and that is the reason why she first fell on the jata of Lord Shiva, and that is what we know of, and that is from there, and it is Lord Shiva who takes the brunt of that impact, and then the water actually comes out as a river from his jata. So natural cleft through the center of the rock surface might present, and the other story is about that Arjuna was doing penance on the river bank in order to acquire arms, pointing to the central figure of an ascetic. So it is believed that yes, it could also be Arjuna who, if you remember, during when they were banished from Hastinapur and they went out on the 12th year of Vanvas and 1 year of Agyatwas, if you and when it was evident that yes, the battle would happen between Kauravas and the Pandavas. So it was and that was the time when Arjun was going into extreme penance, and he was trying to please all the gods, right from Indra to Mahadev to goddess Durga, and he was essentially praying to all the gods and collecting and collecting the mighty weapons from them, the secret arms and the weapons which he knew that he would need against his opponents, who were very strong, against particularly people like like Dronacharya and Bhishma Pitama and Karna, who were fighting from the Kaurava side. So that is according to certain historians, that is was what is being depicted in these Mahabalipuram stones. Okay, so finally remember the many rituals, religious beliefs and practices were not recorded in a permanent visible form as monuments or sculpture or even paintings. These included daily practices as well as those associated with special occasions. Many communities and peoples may not have felt the need for keeping lasting records, even as they may have had vibrant traditions of religious activities and philosophical ideas. In fact, the spectacular instances we have focused on in this chapter are just the tip of the iceberg. So it is, this is something which is obvious because a culture as India, which has such ancient traditions, it is you cannot compress it in one chapter with few pages. Okay, you need many encyclopedias for that. But this is, and that's what it says. It's just tip of the iceberg. Okay, thank you.